Okay, I have my binding strips cut. I prefer to cut mine at 2¼ inches, but this is totally up to you. Now I'm going to do the 45-degree cut. That is going to make them all go together so well. So if you look right here, the little selvage edge with the dots in it, we don't want that included in our binding. So I'm just putting that over this line so that I make sure I don't get that into my binding. And I'm going to stack about 3 pieces on top of each other, because you can cut about 6 layers at a time if you have a good rotary cutter blade. And my pieces don't match, and that's going to make sense to you later on in this tutorial. I want you to be able to really see what's going on here. So if you have a ruler with a nice diagonal, a 45-degree diagonal, you can just line that up with the bottom of your strips. Take a sharp cutter, do a little quarter cut, and now all of these have that same 1/4 inch cut on them, or I'm sorry, 45-degree cut on them. So we can move on to the sewing machine. Okay, here we are at the sewing machine. I have blue thread in my top thread. I have red in my bobbin so that you can really see what's going on throughout the video. And I usually use a walking foot, and I use a walking foot for almost everything. And this particular walking foot has a guide on it. Hopefully you can see that right there. And so that helps me push my fabric right up to the guide so I don't have to pay quite as much attention to where my 1/4 inch line is. So I have my walking foot on with my guide. I have my stitch position set for a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to take these strips that we cut with the 45-degree angle on them, open them up, and sew them end to end. Sorry for that bounce right there. I hit the edge of the camera. All right, so you'll see these line up together just like that. So all I have to do is put this like this, make sure I have a 1/4 inch of the tail of the pink sticking out that end and a 1/4 inch of the tail of the green sticking out this end. You can use pins if you like. I don't think pins are particularly, well, now that I say that, I don't think pins are required at this stage, but if you'd like to pin it, you certainly can. So I'm just going to drop that in there and go ahead and stitch these together. And that gives it that nice 1/4 inch. Now I like to just continue sewing all of mine together in one long strip and then cut it apart. The only thing that you have to realize is which is the front and which is the back of your fabric. And in this case, these are solids, so it's a little hard to tell. But I wanted to use solids for you today so that you would be sure to see everything going on in the video. So again, I'm just going to line this up, push it right on through there, lift this up a little so we can get it going. Make sure they're lined up, and then finish that seam. And when you're calculating how much binding to make, you want to be sure to make at least 10 inches more than the total perimeter of the quilt that you're going to be binding. So if the perimeter of your quilt is 50, you're going to want at least 60 inches of binding. Now to go iron it. Okay, now it's time to iron our binding. We just take the inside of the binding, so this is going to be the inside, and fold the 2 long edges together. And then just press it with a nice dry iron. No steam on this, no pulling. Just a nice quick press all the way down. When you get to a seam, you can either choose to press it open or you can press it to one side. Technically, pressing it to one side is going to make for a stronger binding, because if you press it open, the only thing that is holding those 2 pieces of fabric together is the thread that joins them right here. So if you push it to one side, that's going to make a stronger seam for your binding. And bindings do get a lot of the use in a quilt because, you know, if you've got little kids dragging them around, the binding is normally what is going to wear out first. So you want your binding to be one of the strongest parts of your quilt. And I'll just continue on, and like I said before, I have a 2 colored binding so that I can show you what it looks like when we join the binding ends. which will be one of the steps coming up soon. So one more stretch to iron here. And then we'll move back to the quilt top. There we go. And we finish with this nice 45-degree edge that we cut earlier. And same with the other end of the binding. It starts with another 45-degree edge. This is handy if you cut it all to start with, because then you don't have to cut this on your own later on.